what did we really see? We saw the government with a firm statement that they will be bringing property tax as a burden to further inflict pain and suffering on an already beleaguered nation. Let us discuss one of these draconian measures presented on page 46 of the budget statement, and that is the dreaded property tax. And I would like to quote from the budget statement to bring clarity. And I quote from the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, we are on track to commence the collection of property tax in fiscal 2023. The legal structure is already in place. The Minister of Finance goes further to state, and I quote, upon population of the valuation rules, the Board of Inland Revenue will commence the assessment and collection of property tax, starting with residential properties. You should note that as part of our local government reform exercise, these residential property taxes are allocated by law for the development and maintenance of their respective regions. All residential properties, the assessment of after residential properties, listen to this, after residential properties, whenever that process is complete, the assessment of commercial, industrial, and agricultural properties will follow. Ladies and gentlemen, we look further in the draft estimates of revenue for 2023 of the Ministry of Finance, page 3, and under the heading, under head 2, tax on property, and I have a copy of it in my hand here today. We note that the government expects to collect some $50 million from the hard-working citizens of this nation. We know that this government will eventually ramp up to more than $300 million when there's full compliance and 100% of the residents comply to the payment of property tax. It's here. So it's here. The intention is here to come to tax the citizens of this nation. What is stated in the budget statement, therefore, the Minister of Finance has stated clearly that they will be putting property tax on residential property only at this time. This will now result in families in this country who are already struggling to survive, having to find $50 million more in 2023 to pay for this draconian property tax. Many of these families could barely afford the increased food prices today, the increased fuel prices. Many are struggling to keep a job at this time, ladies and gentlemen. The joblessness is the highest it's been in our nation's history. Over 112,000 persons have lost their jobs between 2015 and 2020, based on our NIB report. This job loss is in the formal sector. But we all know that the informal sector, many thousands more jobs have been lost, leaving many persons stranded and desperate. The level of unemployment is at its most drastic state now under this PNM government. This is why we in the United National Congress stand firm against the implementation of property tax at this time. What the Minister of Finance, ladies and gentlemen, then goes on to tell this nation in the same budget is that property tax on commercial and industrial properties will not be implemented at this time, but will be implemented at some time in the future. Sometime in the future. No indication of when. Only to state that when they have completed the exercise of the implementation of property tax on residential properties, they will then start the assessment and then the implementation of property tax on commercial and industrial properties. Now we know that it took this government at least 3 years to get to this point where they can now come to the nation to implement property tax on the residents, on the tax-paying citizens, on the middle-income and low-income citizens of this country. Took them this length of time. And God knows how long it will take for them to complete the exercise. So how many years will it take for this government to eventually come with property tax on commercial and industrial properties? What we also know, ladies and gentlemen, is that commercial and industrial properties throughout the landscape of this nation, dotted throughout the different neighborhoods, regional corporations, towns, villages, many of these commercial and industrial properties coexist in the same neighborhoods as these residential properties. What we also know, ladies and gentlemen, is that these commercial and industrial properties contribute towards the wear and tear of the infrastructure within these communities. When we look at industrial properties, we see many of their heavy trucks destroying the roadways, creating potholes. We see many of these factories contributing towards pollution within the environment. And these same commercial companies and industrial companies pile up garbage and require garbage to be collected like any other resident within the area. And when we look, ladies and gentlemen, at many of these commercial properties where thousands of citizens patronize them on a daily basis, we know that this too contributes towards pollution in the environment, as well as the depletion of our resources and degradation of the infrastructure. Yet you are coming here with a heavy hand and asking an already heavily taxed citizenry to be the only ones to contribute towards the development and maintenance of the infrastructure within their communities. And this has to be the mantra of the PNM, where the rich gets richer while the poor continues to suffer in silence. And ladies and gentlemen, if you dare protest, you will be accused of wanting everything for nothing. It gets even more interesting, ladies and gentlemen. I was in a debate earlier this year when in a local government reform bill, the government indicated within that bill, within the legislation, that 100% of property tax collected from these residents shall, and I say shall, be allocated to the 14 regional corporations in which they exist. And I scoured through this bill to see what percentage commercial and industrial properties will be contributing to these regions. And I had to scour through the bill, ladies and gentlemen. And somewhere to the end of the bill, hidden in a clause neatly, there's clause 10. And I would like to read clause 10 to the nation here today. Clause 10 states, and I quote, Clause 10 of the bill would seek to amend Property Taxes Act Chapter 7604. New subsection 3 would provide that the Minister of Finance, listen to this, the Minister of Finance may, by order, declare if agriculture, industrial, or commercial taxes may be collected by the municipal corporations and what percentage may be retained. So the government is boasting about collecting residential tax, but they are quietly chucking under Clause 10, Senator Roberts, that the minister may retain the tax collected as opposed to the municipal bodies. The municipal bodies keep 100% of the residential tax. The government tried to slip this by us. The Minister of Finance, a politician, a member of the executive arm of the state, can decide at his whim and fancy, according to this legislation, what percentage will be distributed to the corporation in which the entity exists and what percentage he will retain in the consolidated fund. And the minister must let us know if this is indeed a fact, if this is what the legislation states. Ladies and gentlemen, if this in fact is how we read it, this opens up the door to the potential of political victimization. And let me be lucidly clear. I cast no aspersions on any Minister of Finance, not this one or anyone in the future. But I say that any Minister of Finance now or in the future can now decide to possibly give 20% of the tax collected from the industrial and commercial properties to the corporation that is not under their control, and In this case, it would be the Chaguanas Regional Corporation, the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation. And as we know, that the councillors currently in the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation are currently complaining about the fact that this government has failed to send the subventions to the corporation so that they can do their jobs. And we have seen recently the level of flooding in Sangre Grande, the drains that are clogged. And over the last year, we have seen so many of the assets in the region of Sangre Grande fall into disrepair because these regional corporations are not getting their subventions. While at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, it is possible for a minister to provide the lion's share of the tax collected in industrial and commercial properties to corporations under their political control. So in the marginal region of San Fernando, for instance, they can get the lion's share. It cannot be acceptable, ladies and gentlemen, to put tax on residents, hard-working residents, and inflict further pain on them unless you are prepared to put equity in place and charge property tax on the commercial and industrial properties as well at the same time. However, I repeat that the United National Congress, we in the United National Congress, believe that given the state of our economy, the level of joblessness, that it is not the time to introduce property tax in any shape or form. And when we return to office, which will be very soon, we will ensure that part of our policy is not to implement property tax at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to touch lightly on a headline we saw just this morning with respect to today's Sunday Express, where the MP for Port of Spain South, who buffed citizens for complaining about the price that they cannot afford gas, who told citizens that they should go back to the coal pot and ride a bicycle to work, the same member of parliament is now, after being humbled by the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and that's the power of the people, begging for forgiveness and apologizing on the front page. But this just demonstrates how out of touch that this bunch of PNM MPs are. This is not the apology that the citizens of this country want. The apology that the citizens of this country want is an apology for this evil budget that has been meted out to the citizens. They want a reversal in the price of fuel and an apology with that. And of course, they do not want to be punished with this property tax at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're on the topic of properties, I must bring to the attention of this country that on Friday, the 7th of October, I was skimming through the Newsday, and on page 23 of the Newsday, I saw something that took me back. Here, on page 23 of the Newsday, you can clearly see investment opportunity, Trin City Mall. Ladies and gentlemen, basically, Trin City Mall, which we know is an asset owned by the CL Financial Group, seems, according to this article, to be putting up for sale by the CLF liquidators. So when I saw this advertisement in the Newsday, immediately a red flag popped up at me. Yet again, another asset of the CL Financial Group is being put for sale under this administration. But I want to draw to your attention and to the attention of the media that just about a week ago, in an article, and according to the Express newspaper, on October the 1st by Asher Javid, no other than Asher Javid, it states, and I quote, CLICO can repay government by year end. Let me repeat. It states, CLICO can repay government by year end. The article goes on to state, and I quote, the executive chair of CLICO, Claire Gomez Miller, says the insurance company can clear its $1.1 billion debt to the government of or by the end of 2022. That's this year. And she said the sale of CLICO shares in Methanol Holdings International Limited is imminent. Gomez Miller says the company is in a financial position to complete its repayment to the government after it intervened in the insurance company in 2009 because of the systemic risk it posed on Trinidad and Tobago. The article again goes on to state, and I quote, the company realized its financial statement for its year end December 31st, 2021, in which it reported that its total assets exceeded its total liabilities by $3.71 billion. Regarding the reported financial position in the article, it revealed that those statements, and I quote, those statements were qualified by auditor KPMG, a respected firm, as it did not have up-to-date valuations on Methanol Holdings International Limited and CL World Brands. Now, ladies and gentlemen, CLICO is a 51% owner of CL Financial Group, which is in liquidation, and 49% by the government. CL Financial and CLICO have roughly 3 to 4 billion that they can access, and the government should not now try to dismantle the assets owned by the legitimate shareholders. If indeed the final debt from CLICO is 1.1 billion as stated in this article, this can be paid, then why not allow CLICO to settle this debt? Should the government proceed with selling the assets of the CL Financial to foreign companies, this will only result in destroying what is a successful, locally owned conglomerate. This conglomerate is responsible for the employment of thousands of citizens. We in the opposition cannot stand idly by and allow this government to potentially destroy what is a proud local indigenous company. We wish to caution the government against engaging in actions that amounts to the abuse of citizens. And of course, the citizens I speak of are those that are connected to the CL Financial, either owners, stakeholders, or even the workers there currently. Let us remind the nation that these workers can suffer from the hardship of job loss should this CL Financial Group be unjustly dismantled. We wish to ask the central bank to clear the air on this matter. We are asking the questions here now. The question is whether or not it is the aim of the government to have a fire sale on targeted assets of the CL Financial Group. I am simply asking the question. The government must clear the air on these serious concerns and put to rest the question of whether or not they are aiming to put the final nail in the coffin of what was once the pride of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. This Rowley-led PNM government has demonstrated themselves, especially in the recent times, as being disconnected from the realities of the people and brutally disrespectful. So why not work with the stakeholders to have this matter resolved amicably? So I pose certain questions now to the central bank. These are questions. Given the information presented in the article that I've read for you, it is clear to me from reading this article that CLICO can repay all its debts and still have a large surplus of some $3 billion or so. And if so, would CL Financial, once reunited with CLICO and made whole, be in a position to repay the state in full by the end of 2022? That's a question that I'm asking. The next question I'm asking, if this information is indeed in the affirmative, then can CL Financial now be deemed as solvent once CLICO is returned, rightfully returned? I must also ask another question. Why is the government and the liquidator not bringing all the stakeholders together to bring this matter to a quick end and collect all of the taxpayers' money, instead of having this matter linger to the detriment of our country and our economy? And further to this, I have another question. This question stands as to the legality of the reported prospect of a sell-off of CL Financial assets and properties such as this Trincity Mall that I showed you. We are just simply asking about the legality of it. And ladies and gentlemen, I had yet again a fifth question that I formed last night before coming here today. And on my way here today, stopping off to purchase the newspapers, you would not believe the coincidence. In the Sunday Guardian, October the 9th, 2022, in the Business Guardian, with the headline, Central Bank to exit CLICO and British American. Ladies and gentlemen, the article states, and I will simply read the beginning of the article. The central bank is expected to exit from its emergency control of the Colonial Life Insurance Company, Trinidad Limited, CLICO, and British American, Trinidad Limited, BAT. These are among the measures outlined by the bank in its 4-page strategic plan, a plan that I have not seen. I don't think we've seen that plan, Senator Roberts. The insurance companies came under the control of the bank in 2009, in part due to the potential systemic impact of the financial difficulties that they faced at the time. According to the central bank, over the years, the threat to the financial system has receded. Therefore, it is preparing to exit from control over these institutions. It is here for us to read in The Guardian. And we are looking forward to understand what is the strategic plan. And so therefore I ask the question, when? Give us a date when CLICO will exit, when Central Bank, will exit CLICO and British American. Because ladies and gentlemen, if this is indeed the case, as stated in this newspaper, then I put it to you the question again. If CLICO is reunited with the CL Financial Group, is the CL Financial Group considered solvent? And if this is the case, then the liquidators of CL Financial must cease and desist now from any further sale of assets under the CL Financial Group. They must cease and desist until such time that the central bank can answer all of these questions and that we understand the strategic plan. So when we look at the newspapers and see this mall for sale as one of the major assets of the CL Financial Group, we are calling on the liquidators to cease and desist now. Ladies and gentlemen, these are serious questions that must be answered. What a coincidence that this is coming out for sale while we see on Sunday Guardian that the central bank is exiting CLICO. So I have put the questions forward as stated in this press conference today. We look forward to hearing more on this matter, and I would now like to take this opportunity to hand over to my colleague, Senator Anil Roberts, who will enlighten this nation on the further pain and suffering that this government has meted out throughout this budget and throughout their policies, their draconian policies. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Senator Leida. And on behalf of the political leader of the United National Congress, Condolences go out to the family and friends of the mighty explainer, a calypsonian of great heritage, great lyrics, in whom we can all be proud as a nation. As we know, Calypso has traveled a path that has been walked by the PNM monopoly on the interests and the legacy of Calypso through Joe Newell Williams and her Baya Calypso. But Lord Explainer was never part of that. His lyrics live on. And Lauren is indeed crying at this moment. Condolences to his family, friends, and to the nation as a whole. And on behalf of the political leader of the United National Congress, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, to all of you citizens who are suffering or who have suffered damage from the flooding, from heavy rainfall, damage to your property, to the loss of life of Teresa Lynch, condolences to her family and her friends and to the nation as a whole. Good morning. Just a little note on what Senator Leida said. He said that the government is intent, as he read it for you in this debacle that has been presented as a national budget, this document that should be shredded and dumped in the labas with kerosene, LPG gas, and a box of Three Plumes matches. It was stated in here that the government is going ahead with the property tax to tax you as you've lost your jobs, to tax you as you can't buy gas for your car, to tax you as you have to choose whether to drive in traffic, to tax you as there's no medicine for CEDAP. But let me just ask you this. Coleman but boasts that with property tax on your residences that he and the PNM are going to implement, with PNM people who have been assessed or appointed to assess your property wherever you may live, and they are in charge of determining how much you pay, and they're going to punish you for your success, that's going to yield $50 million. Well, let me just ask you, citizens, because according to MP Anita Haynes, the math's not mathsing. If $50 million is going to be taken from this diabolical property tax that's going to suffer all the citizens of this country, all the government had to do was not waste $233 million and flush it down the toilet by NGC and their board who sought an indemnity to try and go after Atlantic LNG Train 1 when they were told since 2018 November that it was dead, done and dusted. That would have given 5 years of respite to you, the population, because $50 million, they wasted 233. So they did not need to put you and punish you now had they not been so incompetent. Secondly, unlike my diplomatic senatorial colleague Damian Leida, who will not cast aspersions on Colm Imbot and the PNM, I will. Colm Imbot and the PNM for 7 years has shown this geographical discrimination against corporations held by the United National Congress. Our chairman, our people, our councillors have been unable to serve their burgesses because the PNM has underfunded, not funded, and held back legitimate releases. And therefore, we cannot trust Colm Dishonest Imbot to implement a policy fairly in which he has control. He has proven to be dishonest. He has proven to be myopic. He has proven to be only interested in PNM friends and financiers. So the rest of the country cannot rest assured and have confidence in Colm. We have none whatsoever. We are in the midst of the perfect storm. A confluence and convergence of PNM incompetence, no planning by the PNM, poor implementation by the PNM, exacerbation of problems by the PNM, and no solutions on the horizon by the PNM. The PNM plays the blame game and then displays hubris of the most disrespectful, contemptuous manner. It appears that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, broke the proverbial mirror on September 7, 2015. We shattered a mirror and now we're suffering as we have experienced the full brunt of the 7-year curse of bad luck, evil, incompetence, heartlessness, pain, and suffering brought by the elevation of the Email Gate, Landate Gate, Las Alturas Gate, Greenvale Gate, Renaissance Gate, Delsey Gate, Bridgman's Gate, Fake Oil Gate, Petrotrin Gate, Paria Divers Gate, Police Service Commission Gate, Millfleur, Angostura Gate, and now the 2023 unconstitutional budget gate man, the man named Keith Christopher Rowley, the most incompetent, heartless human being to ever be elevated to the pristine, powerful position of Prime Minister by any Caribbean nation. My people, we broke the mirror and we're suffering 7 years and counting of bad luck. However, it appears that the scribes were wrong, because 7 years of bad luck, evil, incompetence, hubris, and heartlessness has elapsed with no end in sight until 2025, unless you, the people, all races, all religions, all hues, Trinbagonians unite to rid this country of Keith Rowley and the PNM. Now in this fight against the self-proclaimed Lekoto Jambi, all good, decent, honest Christians, Muslims, Hindu, Orisha, Baptists need to pray to remove the evil that Lekoto Jambis have put on this country. We cannot be so blind. We need an election now. This budget, this thing, and I read through every word and I went through and analyzed it. My goodness, this might be the most evil document ever presented in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. This budget is unconstitutional. I repeat, it is unconstitutional. This is your constitution. I beseech all of you, get a copy. Go online. I don't know if it's online because PNM does not fund digital. It is online, I'm hearing. Go and read it. Just read the preamble. Don't take my word for it. This is the supreme law of the land. This governs the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and all the policies that should be made. Let me read for you from the preamble of the Constitution to tell you why this document is unconstitutional and should be dumped deep in the recesses of a burning pyre. Whereas the people of Trinidad and Tobago, in Part B of the preamble, respect the principles of social justice and therefore believe that the operation of the economic system should result in the material resources of the community being so distributed as to subserve the common good, that there should be adequate means of livelihood for all, that labor should not be exploited or forced by economic necessity to operate in inhumane conditions, but there should be opportunity for advancement on the basis of recognition of merit, ability, and integrity. This document goes against that entire section. It treats labor with disrespect. It removes the resources that are equitably distributed for the population into the hands of the recusals of the cabinet. Kamla Persad-Bissessar was the Prime Minister and was met with the same advice from the economic financial experts, where she was told that the fuel subsidy is unproductive expenditure. But Kamla Persad-Bissessar believes in the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. She can recite this document nearly verbatim, word for word, because she has read through it and memorized it so much. And Kamla Persad-Bissessar told those who told her to remove the fuel subsidy that she believes it is the most productive expenditure of the government, that it lives and upholds the Constitution because every single citizen benefits from the fuel subsidy. Whether you drive a car, own a car, you take bus, you take transport, whatever you buy, you benefit from the fuel subsidy. So Kamla Persad-Bissessar left the fuel subsidy there for you. The UNC and the PNM are not the same. Rowley and Colm Imbert and his cabinet of hubris and narcissism has said that this does not matter because they bring this to take away the distribution of resources that you own, that you earn by being born here. They take it from you. They wean you off of it so that they can recuse themselves and pay themselves rent and give their wives contracts and hand out money to those friends and financiers who they deem fit. That is unconstitutional. For 7 years, the PNM has waged a war on the citizens from an elevated position propped up by 7 pillars of evil. I shall now go through those 7 pillars of evil, and if you're spiritual, if you're more spiritual than me, if you're religious, whatever religion, pray for our nation. Because when a nation is built on pillars of evil, it is destined for darkness. Nothing works in this country. Ask yourself why. Keith Rowley admitted that he made a deal in Lekoto for the leader of the opposition, which elevated him to prime minister. A deal in Lekoto that brought pain, devastation, and death to a former prime minister and leader of the PNM, Patrick Manning. And now the country is suffering. Number 1 pillar of PNM evil: heartlessness, hubris, and narcissism, led by Rowley himself. Telling you, as they all try to backtrack now on a reverse system, telling you that you should choose when you drive. I can't afford to subsidize you to go to Tobago with your Horner woman. Never mind he in a parlor with somebody woman, somebody wife. But he's talking about himself sharing Olay chips. But he talks down to you in the most disrespectful manner. Tells you to drive your car. Don't go into traffic. If you leave and you're in traffic, you're an idiot. That's what Rowley says to you, the people. Could you imagine Kamala Persad-Bissessar ever dressing up, putting on her suit and telling the people, the citizens that? Don't tell me PNM and UNC are the same. You're dishonest if you say that. Then you get shocked when the PNM ministers all sound like Rowley. A leader. That's why leadership is important. A leader chooses people who he sees in his own image. So if Rowley is heartless, narcissistic, does not even care for his outside children and leaves them outside and would not take care of them like the inside ones, as I just drove past Victoria Keys and a police car is parked up there. I asked Keith Rowley, why is that car parked up there all the time while West End Police Station have no vehicles to see about the people in Diego Martin who are under the gun from bandits with AR-15s, carjackings, muggings, and home invasions? Why is that car parked there at Victoria Keys? Keith Rowley, who are they protecting? Can someone say twins? When you hear Marvin Gonzalez tell you don't go movie town 3 times a week, don't eat ham and macaroni, he is fast and out of place in his Eclipse Eli suits designed the separation of Wassa TNTech. We have gone back to 1948. We have no water. When the Salcott goes down and they attack the Salcott, which was created to make a profit for the energy sector, that the PNM collapsed. They say it's the Salcott fault, but the Salcott water clean and pristine. When the Salcott goes down for a little maintenance, you see water coming out brown like mud water, like the Tutu water that was in Beetham for 7 months as they did not take care of the people in the Beetham. But that's what you vote for, and you give them hubris. So when you hear Marvin Gonzalez, when you hear Paula May Week saying PTSD is run on time, when you hear her say that she drives a reasonably expensive vehicle, but she counts her pennies when she's putting fuel, and therefore you all should do the same. When Colm Imbert tells you you haven't rioted yet, when Rowley tells you that he raised the price 10 times for gas, it's really 7 times, and he says, so what, that's true. This is PNM. They always were this way. You know, the media is showing you. They were never humble. They were never there to serve the people. They were there to serve themselves. 210 recusers and a 30 general getting $84 million of taxpayer money to rent his own building, and y'all sat there and said it's okay. And now we are now understanding in unity, in unison across the country, that the PNM is wrong for Trinidad and Tobago. When you hear Shamfa Cudjoe, all of a sudden with fancy bag, makeup, Sasha Cosmetics, inside, outside, looking like the sun is shining on her, because it's just all of a sudden she looks a little bit lighter when she is enjoying the perks of office. Some to the tune of some 60,000 a month. She tells you, you don't sacrifice. That was Shamfa from the beginning. Her first speech in the parliament, she said she will be in your face like a Lekoto Jambi. And then you wonder why evil abounds in this country. Pray, my people. When you hear Maurice Julian telling citizens, You're big, you're grown, and you have sense. They make your decision as a minister in the Ministry of Education. When you hear Hines talking about this is my show, when we are dying and being murdered and our ladies are being washed up on the banks and dumped in a repo, Fitzgerald sleepy at Albert Hines, who cannot keep his eyes awake for a moment, has to tell you this is his show. Well, sir, your show is a horror movie. It's hellacious, and never before have citizens across the board felt so unsafe. When you hear Keith Scotland with his wide self, if he was here in this press conference, you would have to widen the camera, telling you about he go ride bike. That is his solution. He have a coal pot, and if you can't afford gas, buy more expensive coals, the idiots that they are. What would you like me to say? Now they come to feign apology. Oh, I didn't really mean that, but you went into detail in your Hansard. You didn't only make it a passant. You went on to explain what you will do, why you will do it, and when you will do it, and when you will stop doing it. You will go back to buy the gas when you could afford it. Now you come in to feign apology. The people say fire burn you, PNM. But I put it to you that this was the PNM. This is the PNM. That's why they play a race card. According to my doubles man, if we are Africans and Indians when we go into vote, during election time, he asked me, well, who are the Trinbagonians? And that's the point. The PNM can only win when they divide us. But this hubris, this PNM, this budget has unified the country and brought us to a tipping point where the PNM and Rowley must go. Not just Rowley, all of them. They are all Rowley. They are all little mini-me's. They are all little clones of the arrogant, heartless, disrespectful, incompetent Keith Rowley. Secondly, I turned 2 pages there. 2, dishonesty. We're dealing with the 7 pillars of evil that uphold in this government and why nothing works in this country. Dishonesty. You have the PNM bigwig case, for example. Al-Rawi, Saddam Hussein had to tell you in the parliament that Faris Al-Rawi called a sub judice when he was debating that case with a former Arima mayor and a PNM who had the government in court. The PNM under Al-Rawi did not defend the case for you. They did not let lawyers show up. They made no submissions. They lost the case. They lied and did not appeal, just like the fake oil case. And now $2.6 million of your money has to go to the PNM boys. That's governance for you. Malcolm Jones, Rowley's talking about 850 million US bullet payment. They have 2 of those bullet payments. And he dismisses the point that Malcolm Jones was the executive director of Petrotrin as a PNM, that Malcolm Jones was a client of Stuart Smallpin Young, that Malcolm Jones was taken out of court by Rowley and Faris Al-Rawi as soon as they came into government, and he was appointed to the Energy Committee. And Rowley is talking about that payment like it just dropped from the sky. No, it came because of PNM corruption. And still, Lashley report, McKinsey report, Solomon report, and Petrotrin board under Winfred Espine said, do not shut down Petrotrin. Reorganize and make it lean and mean. Rowley shut it down because somebody told Rowley, if I go down, we all go down. And he danced bareback using racist epithets. But the media didn't ask Rowley if that's still his friend. But you're studying a counselor in Grandy who is an African woman. And by the rules of epithets, he could use that word. I could use it to either Douglas. Could do many things. That's the beauty of being a Douglas. There's no race. We are all Trinbagonians, as Kamala Persad-Bissessar says. Cut her, cut me, cut Lida, cut whoever. We all bleed Trinbagonian blood. And that's why we are at the tipping point. And the dishonesty of the PNM, whether it's NGC wasting your money, the mosquito crack, the fuel subsidy lies, or the Angostura lies, as Keith Rowley, the most recent one, telling you straight in the parliament, lying with impunity, that he went to a private function invited by Angostura, a state-managed, state-owned company, most shareholdings to the government-appointed board. And in Rowley's speech, he himself said at Millefleur, the expensive, expansive fiesta, while you suffering, while you in flood, while you can't feed your children, while you can't buy textbooks, while you're stretching the uniform that your child can't wear because they get taller, Rowley dancing and ramaging and saying, when we, meaning the government, instructed Angostura to have this function, Rowley is an unadulterated liar. Are we supposed to look at him and tell our children, we want you to be like that? I think not. Not even the most rabid PNM will look at a child and say, I want you to be like Rowley. I know all the PNM listening. I asked you that question. If you believe that, go and tell your child now. I want you to lie like Rowley. I want you to be dishonest like Rowley. I want you to be arrogant like Rowley. I want you to be wicked like Rowley. I want you to put people in charge to create a web of corruption around money like Rowley. Go and tell your child that. 3, dictatorship. Well, we have reached a stage of dictatorship. In this budget here, the PNM and Colm Imbot creates a concocted story that does not exist and then debates that story. They talk about somebody whispering in the airs to say, go to the IMF. But if we went to the IMF, things will be worse. Well, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the throes and have been in the throes of IMF prescriptions by the PNM and Colm Imbot for the last 7 years. The IMF says, when you are in doubt and when you need to restructure, you must eliminate price controls. What are price controls? Your subsidy, eliminated. TNTech, WASA, subsidized. They're in the process of eliminating that and blaming the RIC, even though they have determined how much gas TNTech would get. They have not paid TNTech $7 billion since 2015. Price controls, they've cut down food cards from 42,000 under Kamla Persad-Bissessar down to 18,000. They cut school feeding from 73,000 meals, breakfast and lunches per day for children, down to before the COVID, 48,000. Then during COVID, they used COVID to starve children and went down to 20,000. They cut funding to differently able. They cut funding to sport and culture. They put out all the price controls. That's an IMF prescription. Then they had to get rid of people. They froze work in the public sector. They did not renew contracts. In the Ministry of Sport, 78 officers were not renewed and they lost their jobs. Sport company has been shredded by 40%. Those are IMF prescriptions. They also move. That's by reducing the wage bill. And as Senator Leida just showed you, the next step of IMF is sell off assets. And they have been selling off assets and they continue to sell off assets which should not even be their own. So we are in the prescriptions of the IMF. The PNM did not sign or take money from the IMF. Why? I ask you why. The answer is Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Because she managed this country so well from 2010 to 2015, she increased the savings in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to $7.6 billion US. She left $12.26 billion US in reserves, 14 months of import cover. She left an investment rating at all credit rating agencies of AAA+, which meant you did not need, as the PNM, when you need to borrow, to go to the IMF, because Kamla left us strong. Kamla left us with the ability to borrow, and you, through your cheating and your EBC and your gerrymandering and your racist division politics that was created by Eric Williams in 1961, you moved Kamla Persad-Bissessar by 2,800 votes in 2 constituencies, and then they sucked out your savings. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund now stands at $4.8 billion US, $3 billion US less than Kamla. The reserve requirement, the US, moved from 12.26. It is now down to 6.8. It is half of Kamla. We now at 7.5 months of import cover, half of Kamla. So that's the only reason they didn't go to the IMF, because Kamla left Trinidad and Tobago in a strong position where Colm Imbot could borrow $30 billion and take our debt to GDP ratio up to 97%. And now that a war in Ukraine blows up the energy sector through global shocks in prices, he says that we are now good. When that balloon busts, we will be back into the debt trap because of the stupidity and incompetence of Colm Imbot and the PNM. We also move on to the 4th pillar of evil, institutional degradation. The framers of our Constitution put checks and balances in place to prepare us and protect us from dictatorship. But the framers of this document could have never envisaged a human being of such low caliber as Keith Christopher Rowley ever ascending to the office of Prime Minister. They could have never thought that such a heartless man, such a lazy man, such a dishonest man could ever sit in that seat. That seat is supposed to be reserved for the best of the best, the classiest of the classy. And now, the checks and balances that were put in there have been poisoned with Balizé juice by Rowley. Whether it's the office of the president, as we saw on August 11, 2021, where she allowed Keith Rowley, who found out about a secret list from an independent organization of the Police Service Commission, to come there and influence her and the then chairperson of the Police Service Commission, Bliss Prasad, to breach Section 123(4) of this and break the law and misbehave in public office. The president is supposed to be a check and balance on executive power. She is not. Then you have the parliament, supposed to be able, the minority must have their say. You have seen for 7 years the most oppressive dictatorial attitudes by presiding officers, not allowing the opposition to speak. You see the EBC, the referee, supposed to be impartial, not like UNC or Yellow or Kamla, and not like the Red and Rowley and the Reddy, supposed to be impartial, to have a fair competition, to see who will win. They put the niece of a Red and Reddy minister sitting in the cabinet, the best friend of a sitting minister of education, who embarrasses our children and puts our parents under pressure at every point, who has brought education to the lowest levels in the last 100 years. Our children are failing. They cannot pass. Guyana and other countries are surpassing us at Cape, CSEC. Our SEA children are having the worst run of it because the PNM is evil and incompetent. The TTPS. Back in 1961 at Marlborough House, the colonial masters refused to give Dr. Williams the authority to select a commissioner of police because they said that one institution that must remain independent must be the police. So you must have no authority to select or to put anybody on that in that position. But come to 2021, 60 years later, Keith Rowley handpicks an incompetent number 6 man who did not even apply for the job by thwarting and misbehaving in public office and causing 2 other public officials so to do, being the President of the Republic and the former head of the Police Service Commission, Bliss Prasad. And they hand-selected a commissioner of police. And now we are seeing the police being used as a tool against political opponents. And you think that we are in a democracy? Dictatorship abounds. The DPP office is supposed to be constitutionally independent. But Keith Rowley, Imbat Al-Rawi and the PNM have starved the DPP's office of resources. They're operating at 37%. And judges are criticizing the DPP's office when it is not their fault. They don't generate their own revenues. They are given and starved of funds just like the UNC corporations. And therefore they are unable to do their job. And the criminal justice system is collapsing in the face of the PNM. That is one of the evil pillars that we are going through. Furthermore, you have had a sitting attorney general who interfered and got influence with a witness in a criminal proceeding. And we hear nothing of it. Signing of an indemnity with in a matter involving a criminal charge, which is not on. It breaches the separation of powers. Number 5, the legalized thieving. Where's the procurement legislation? 7 years on. Has it been proclaimed? Kamla Prasad left us there with a strong procurement legislation with a special majority. Keith Rowley came in when that mirror broke September 7, 2015. Where's the procurement legislation? He did not bring it. He did not proclaim it up to now. Furthermore, he went to the parliament with Faris Al-Rawi, aka Johnny Sukaran, to water it down, to weaken it. Let me ask you, the population, if you have security locks on something to protect it from thieves, why would you reduce the number of locks? Why would you change the number of the numbers on a combination lock to protect money. Why would you remove CCTV cameras from protecting your money? Anyone who reduces security on money must be doing that for a reason. What could that reason be? Could it be to steal your money? So please answer me this. If Kamala puts locks and security to protect your money, and Keith Rowley takes off those locks and reduces the security over your money, who is the thief? Legalized thieving. They gutted procurement legislation. Senator Wade Mark says they legalized thieving across the board. 210 recusals in a cabinet in 4 years. One family getting $5 billion of work when previously zero public sector work. $625 million ambulance lease. How much are ambulances cost? How many ambulances could Trinidad and Tobago have purchased for $625 million? And medical supplies removed from the procurement legislation by Keith Rowley, Faris Al-Rawi, aka Johnny Sukaran. But we see that there. But you have to pay property tax. I can't go through all of this because I'll go too long. This morning, coming to the press conference, I just jotted down. Could you all see all of that in my handwriting, so you know my crapperfoot handwriting, that I wrote that down this morning? These are conflicts of interest of the government, the PNM government of Trinidad and Tobago in the last 7 years. Just off the top of my head, you know, without any reading, without any research. Do you see all of these? Each one of these represents a benefit to a minister, a minister's wife, a minister's family, PNM financiers, without procurement, without corporate governance. Look at it very good. This is the issue. These are the notes of PNM corruption under Rowley. Let me just read a few. 210 recusal, Police Service Commission, Foster in charge of credit unions, while Foster and Venture Credit Union, MPS paying Foster Venture Credit Union, putting money in his own, gutting procurement legislation. Former AG's wife received briefs from OPM and other places. Paria keeps control of possible crime scene. Bridget rules on Paria while her husband is involved. And it goes on and on. Fake oil, Nikwan, Bridgeman's called crooked money by Rowley. But you know where the crooked money reached as of today? $142 million of crooked money, 22,500 US per day since Rowley and the PNM came in. Number 6, pillar of evil. No plan. Exacerbate the problems, and the PNM is bereft of solutions. The economy is shattered. The energy sector has been shattered through the negotiation in 2017 by Keith Rowley and Stuart Smallpin Young. 11 companies have left Point Lisas. Point Lisas has diminished in its value. We have no refinery. Petrotrain has been shut down. Our Atlantic Train 1 is gone. We are suffering from no production. Bid rounds have failed. The outlook on the Ryder Scott report is not good. The energy sector has crumbled. Infrastructure is crumbling. We are flooding when it just rains. Education is at the lowest level. Crime is at the highest level. The US have advised their citizens not to come to Trinidad and Tobago, not to go to Port of Spain. It's level 4 that you can be murdered and killed at random, and it's getting worse. And the PNM says, hey, it didn't get worse. It was the same last year. Yes, Amory Brown, it was the same last year. So what have you done in 1 year? You come and bring this budget 4 hours and 12 minutes and call me, but there's a 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Dougie Fresh, on crime, on safety and security. 2 minutes. When our people are dying and being murdered and battered and shot in their homes. And you say elections are irrelevant, UNC and PNM the same. I say nonsense, my people. Number 7, the 7th pillar of PNM evil from Lekoto. Patriotism. Patriotism and merit is dead. Imagine you have a man, the second in command, Stuart Smallpin Young, telling us in the UNC, people like David Naked who played and sweat for this country for decades, that we are not patriotic. He is the patriot. But he came into politics, one sitting down on an off inquiry with Calder, earning $100,000 a day as a junior attorney. That off inquiry brought about by Keith Rowley, who is now his #1 K-Pax man. And number two, he came to prominence under Rowley by defending Rowley in Emailgate, the greatest perpetration of dishonesty in the history of the Commonwealth Parliament. That is Stuart Smallpin Young. He and his brother and his father have benefited to the tune of $5 billion when he swore to take care of you, to do what's best for you. And he comes to tell us about patriotism. I say to Smallpin, boy, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Parasram, Order of Merit of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM turns national awards into games at Balize House. How can a man who has overseen 4,250 deaths and a shattering of the economy, every variant known to man coming in here, COVID-19 death rates of 92% in the ICU, and the PNM says that he deserves an Order of Merit of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? That's patriotism. There is a 105-page scathing report on COVID-19. When Kamla Persad-Bissessar becomes Prime Minister, there shall be a commission of inquiry into the COVID-19 handling by the PNM, into every single death, what could have been done, what should have been done, what had to be done. And you give a man, take care, they take that order and that medal and put it somewhere around Golden Grove. The continuation of PNM policy of racial discrimination continues today. Our country is more divided than ever before because of Keith Christopher Rowley. It began in 1961 with Dr. Eric Eustace Williams. Let me read a bit for you, because don't think that racism and division in politics came by guess. It is a tool of the PNM. I read for you from page 18, and you must get this book, Kenneth R. Lala, A Republic in Constitutional Transition. Let me read a little bit for you. First of all, Dr. Williams on page 18 says, Dr. Williams, in referring to the concerns of the Indians over federation, considered them to be obstructionists, like the Indians who had settled themselves in Kenya and in Africa. So Williams, the Prime Minister, the father of the nation, you all say, considering the second largest group at that time of East Indian people to be obstructionists. This was at the beginning of his reign. He then went on December 22nd, 1961. Williams was addressing members of his party in Woodford Square, the Woodford Square that the PNM locked when the citizens were coming to protest this evil, unconstitutional budget. In Woodford Square, when he told them that on December 4th, 1961, the Trinidad Guardian, and is it ironic that the Trinidad Guardian is now the Guardian of Rowley and the PNM? The Trinidad Guardian announced that Sir Gerald White, a local white man, no pun intended, had joined the Democratic Labour Party. He told his audience that the announcement was presented in such a way as to suggest that was a feather in the cap of the Democratic Labour Party. And therefore, Williams said, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago should follow the lead of Sir Gerald White. It would appear, says Lala, that Williams had been so obsessed with the Guardian's announcement that he poured scorn on the Guardian and the white community, reminding them that our population today was far too alert and sophisticated to fall for any such claptrap. He said, and I quote, Massa Day done. Williams also accused the DLP of being a stooge for masses who still exist in our society, and for wanting to keep back social progress, and for wanting to bring back Massa Day, race injected in our politics, enhanced through the years, and now has reached its worst level under the worst Prime Minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Christopher Rowley. And we must remember the words of wisdom from my doubles man. If on election day we feel we are Africans and Indians, where are my Trinbagonians? We need to unite, join the UNC, All are welcome. All brains on deck. We need each and every one. There is a place for everyone. The myriad and plethora of problems that exist in Trinidad and Tobago cannot be solved by one human being. The PNM is out of touch. The PNM holds the citizens in contempt. All the citizens. The PNM treats all of us with the utmost disrespect. The PNM must go. Rowley must go. The evil, oppressive dictator must go. Rowley, the people are not irritated, Rowley. The people are not on edge, Rowley. You have pushed us all over the edge, over the precipice. There is but one solution. Your immediate and complete political annihilation and removal from office. We haven't rioted yet because we are disciplined, Rowley. We are patriotic, Rowley. We are passionate, loving, caring, diligent people, Rowley. We believe in and ascribe to the principles of democracy. Do not for a moment, Keith Christopher Rowley, mistake our dignity, decorum, and discipline for weakness. Who are you to accuse us of being lazy and unable to work from home? You are a heartless dictator, Keith Christopher Rowley, an inveterate liar, a disrespectful, oppressive charlatan, and your time is up. Good conquers evil every time. You and your deceitful band of Lekoto Jumbies, your time is over, because good people will unite. Good Trinbagonians across this country have realized that your time is over. We have reached the tipping point. This is the tipping point, a book by Malcolm Gladwell. It talks about a time when evil may pervade for a while, but there always comes a time when it will be defeated. That time is called the tipping point. Gladwell says the tipping point is the biography of an idea. And the idea is very simple. It is that the best way to understand the emergence of fashion trends, the ebb and flow of crime waves, or for that matter, the transformation of unknown books into bestsellers, or the rise of teenage smoking, or the phenomena of word of mouth, or any number of other mysterious changes that mark everyday life, is to think of them as epidemics. Ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread just like viruses do. For example, the crime decline in New York surely happened the same way. It wasn't that some huge percentage of would-be murderers suddenly sat up in 1993 and decided not to commit any more crimes. Nor was it that the police managed magically to intervene in a huge percentage of situations that would otherwise have turned deadly. What happened is that the small number of people in the small number of situations in which the police or the new social forces had some impact started behaving differently, and the behavior somehow spread to other would-be criminals in similar situations. Ladies and gentlemen, the little fires of good, the little fires of hope are burning throughout Trinidad and Tobago in little nooks and crannies. They must come together and burn the PNM and Rowley straight into oblivion and out of political office. Change is required. Change is needed. We are at the tipping point. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some questions coming in. Senator Ryder, firstly, you mentioned the property tax, and then the UNC, while it was in government in 2015, were there plans by the UNC as well to implement property tax?
Well, what we can say is that while the People's Partnership, led by the then Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, we can say now definitively that no property tax was indeed implemented between 2010 and 2015. And the now leader of the opposition continues, and the UNC continues to hold firm on the policy that now is not the right time to implement property tax, given the current situation in our economy, given the dire stress of joblessness for citizens. And if it is that the government is boasting about $8.3 billion increase in revenue coming in, then why at this point in time should they put citizens under significant pressure to eke out and milk out $50 million from these hard-pressed citizens today, and eventually $300 million? So bottom line is, the property tax was never implemented, or I should say the land and building tax was never implemented between 10 and 15. However, we still hold firm that it should not be implemented now.
Let us be clear on that question, and let us distinguish between Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the PNM. The PNM wants to implement a draconian tax without fairness and equity across the board. They want to adhere to principles of PNMism, that they appoint these assessors to go to places and to go to people. And in the track record of this PNM that has showed geographic discrimination, open fire discrimination, discrimination against Indians, discrimination against Hindus, discrimination against the UNC, who can believe that a fair assessment will be made by PNM officials appointed by the PNM, protected by the PNM police, to give an assessment, number one. Number two, the calculation is ridiculous. The exorbitant taxes that the PNM want to put on people is unfortunate, misguided, and oppressive. The Kamla Persad-Bissessar ran this country for 5 years and 4 months without raising a single tax. Kamla Persad-Bissessar says the time is wrong. People are suffering. We are at our lowest ebb. We are worse off than 1982, 1983. People cannot even get foreign exchange. The PNM has crashed the economy through their decisions and must not, at this time, suffer the people.
Chancellor, you mentioned a figure there, 50 million, right? One of the things that people have pointed out against Minister Ingles is that his projections have been consistently wrong, and it's fallen short on pretty much most of the things that he has projected. Are you confident that this projection of 50 million from residential will be?
I am not confident in any projection coming out of this government or coming out of the Minister of Finance. And I think the media person who launched that question framed it correct, because he has been wrong. But we can only go with what we see in the draft estimates of revenue for 2023, where under head number 2, taxes on property, it is clearly stated that they estimate to collect $50 million in 2023. So that is all we can go on. Do I have confidence that it will happen? Not necessarily. Although it is indeed a tax, so one may think that maybe it's more than 50 million they'll collect. The way in which his government taxes, the way in which the Minister of Finance likes to tax, likes to take away subsidies and so forth. But we can only go on what's in the draft estimates at this point.
Senator Roberts mentioned some of the remarks made by Mr. Scotland. Today in the Express, Mr. Scotland has apologized for his remarks or his misunderstanding of his remarks, and says he understands that people are different. How do you accept his apology?
Accept what apology? He has not apologized. An apology is a simple thing. When you are wrong, you say, I'm sorry. You do not say you're sorry and explain that we misunderstood what you said. We understand the English language. You were on Hansard. You said and you went into details about what we should do as citizens to ensure that the pressure of the removal of the subsidy taken by you, the cabinet, and you, the PNM, we must have coal pot. We must ride bike. That is your solution. Don't come and pretend you're apologizing now because the whole country is ridiculing you and laughing at you, and now understand why you have no portfolio. Keith Scotland is a disgrace, and what he has said, his apology does not even measure up to the insensitivity, the insanity, the hubris, and the narcissistic attitude of the PNM, number one. Number two, when you say that you apologize, Keith Scotland, you did not apologize when the parents and the families of the Barrier 4 divers were treated with disrespect, disdain, and left in a shed while their children were suffering under water, dying slowly. You didn't apologize. You didn't apologize when 233 million was wasted by your government on Atlantic Train 1 when Shell and all the stakeholders had said that it is dead. You did not apologize for your 210 recusals of your PNM. You did not apologize for the embarrassing situation of a sitting PNM Attorney General renting out his own building and outfitting it for the total tune of 84 million. You did not apologize as people were dying from COVID-19 incompetence and citizens were suffering. You did not apologize when your Prime Minister lied on Barbados about vaccinations and only made us wait for Sinopharm NDA purchase vaccinations, of which 400,000 have been thrown away and 5 million US wasted. You did not apologize as people are suffering in floods and your Prime Minister does not care for the last 4 years. You didn't apologize when the ODPM is nowhere to be found and citizens across this country are suffering just from rainfall. You did not see to apologize for the policies of your government. You come to apologize because people realize that you are incompetent. Fire burn you, Keith Scotland. Keep your apology where it is best kept. On your bike, in your coal pot, and light it with a 3 plumes match.
Shepherd, on the question of the party that was hosted by Angostura, the Prime Minister said that Angostura is a private company and he simply attended by invitation. However, the opposition leader has pointed out that it's actually government of Trinity who's the majority shareholder in Angostura. Do you think the board of Angostura should clarify exactly?
Well, I think the board of Angostura is PNM, and clarity and transparency and accountability is not the PNM way. The Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, is an inveterate liar. He went in the parliament knowing fully well that Angostura is a government agency. He appoints the board members. He put Dr. Miriam Abdul-Richards on the Angostura board most recently when he saw her and he was infatuated with her at a press conference in front of the whole country. Angostura is PNM. Rowley, in his speech at Millefleur, said that he instructed Angostura that they wanted this function for art and so on and history. Rowley, in his speech, said that it was the best money spent, that if he was to do anything, he had to ensure that money was spent to enable these plantation houses to look good, not for textbooks like Kamla, not for differently able, not for increase in minimum wage, not for pensioners, not for food cards, not for school, not for laptop. He wanted to make sure that an old plantation house looked good so he could make a speech. He said that he instructed Angostura. Keith Rowley is a liar.
Senator, you mentioned the Clico issue. The central bank today has announced its plans to exit from the emergency control of Clico. They have not, however, demonstrated a timeline. Is that concerning?
Well, it absolutely concerns me. It concerns me especially when we see assets of the CL Financial Group being advertised in a newspaper for sale and in some cases fire sale. I mean, anyone looking at, let's take Trincity Mall for instance. We all know that as a result of the crashed economy, that many businesses, I think more than 6,000 SMEs have shut their doors. So it is quite normal to go into any mall through the length and breadth of this country and see vacancies. But it is distinctly noticeable in Trincity Mall, where an entire wing of that mall is empty. So one would want to ask the question, why this particular mall, out of all malls, has been so severely impacted, especially when this mall sits in a very big catchment of citizens and population in this country. I mean, the average person with a business brain would want to ask the question, is this, I ask the question, is this something that has been orchestrated? I don't know.
But let me ask it this way.
But it seems very strange it seems very strange that an entire wing, and then we see the mall going up for sale.
But wait, you are a businessman, so let me ask you this, Senator Leiter. Yeah. If your goal is to get and generate the most from an asset, why would you sell it when it is at its darkest, lowest level?
Well, exactly, and especially if the Minister of Finance has boasted about a turnaround in the economy and an expectation of more business and boasting of manufacturing, boasting of exports, boasting of increased business, boasting of nominal GDP increase, right, instead of real GDP increase. one would have thought you would hold on to an asset. But I mean, the government, of course, it's the liquidators that are liquidating this asset now. So for me, it doesn't make any sense at this point in time. But I cast no aspersions on anyone. But it just seems passing strange that at a time when it is at its lowest, it's now being put for sale. And at the same point in time, we are seeing the central bank today in the Guardian to exit Clico. So that is why I asked the questions I've asked today. There's no clear timeline on when central bank intends to exit. They've indicated that there is a strategy being put together to exit. We await to hear that, and we look forward to getting some answers from the central bank of the questions I've asked earlier. And as such, it is my feeling that all assets in Clico and the CL Financial Group should be put on hold at this point in time from being sold until such time that the nation, the shareholders, the stakeholders understand what is the exit strategy and the timelines on that.
In the past year, there have been concerns raised that the independence of the central bank has been eroded by the contract. I think that the management of this particular matter involving Clico raises further questions as to the independence of the bank.
Mr. Roberts, you want to take that one?
Absolutely, because the court case was won by former central bank governor Jawala Rambaran against Colm Imbert, who has lost another case, and he just seems to be losing cases left, right, and center. Furthermore, the replacement at the central bank is none other than the neighbor at Inez Gate in Tobago of Keith Christopher Rowley. At Inez Gate, where Keith Christopher Rowley failed to fill out his Form B in his Integrity in Public Life Act form, yet there are no handcuffs on Keith Rowley yet. Where's that investigation? Because he did not fill it out. And once you do not fill it out in normal English, that is a criminal offense. Furthermore, he misled on Form A. He said that the purchase price and the value of the unit, which is neighbors with Alvin Hilaire, the governor of the central bank, appointed by Colm Imbert and the PNM after the removal of Jawala Rambaran, is Rowley's neighbor. Rowley put on his Form A that the purchase price was 1.2 million and the value was 1.2 million, but he paid 33,600 stamp duty, which equates to a value of 1.68 million. Therefore, he put false information and signed an Integrity in Public Life Act form. That is a no-no, and that's a criminal offense. Furthermore, that 468,000 benefit was received from the owner and the contractor who receives contracts from the government, and Rowley did not declare that benefit. They charged Bastio Pandey because he didn't know his wife had an account. Where the charges for Rowley? Are we living in a democracy or a dictatorship? Thank you.
Okay. So you want to close?
Well, I want to tell you thank you very much for spending this Sunday on behalf of Senator Damian Lyda and myself. I would like to say to all of you, enjoy your Sunday lunch. For those of you who are spending the days cleaning up, our UNC MPs and councillors are all out there. Call them if you need assistance. Kamla Prasad Bisesa has given the instruction for all her members to be out there to ease your pain. So have a great morning. Thank you very much. And join us. Look out to our UNC websites, our UNC Facebook, YouTube pages for all of our information, all of our activities, Monday night virtual, going across the board. Meetings are going on. The UNC is alive and well. Get your membership forms and join. Fill them out. The UNC welcomes everybody. One leader, one party, one nation. UNC and proud. Good day.